So today I heard Larry Hoover got his sentence communed by Donald Trump, and I'm gonna just be honest for a lot of people that may not understand that. Yeah, he communed his sentence, but on a state level, uh, Larry Hoover still has to do what he has over 200 and something, uh, which is a nice way of saying that he's never getting out of jail. And as much as people on the streets where he come from might need him, because I noticed like even when you start digging more into his past and things that he might have thought and then changed and really changed the narrative of his organization as far as like moving more towards a positive and the whole knowledgeable thing about it. A lot of people have took that and went a whole nother way with it. So as much of an impact he might have on the street, which the way things are now with the youngsters not necessarily caring of what their OGs say. It's one thing to be in a cage and the power to be there, but on the streets, it only takes one bullet to end everything. And I think that's what it will come down to. People will be nervous and jealous of that fact, and it might not even be his community. It might be the ones that put him in there, because that's see, this is the one thing that people fail to realize about the United States, and they don't necessarily keep people in power that they cannot make a puppet, especially the black community. They don't release people of melanin into the population that are strong leaders. They tend to want to keep them in a position of foot on their neck, and especially if you're not one to necessarily go along with what they want you to do, they keep their foot on your neck, and the way to keep you in check is to keep you in that cage. For Larry Hoover to get released, it would take an act of God. And the reason I say that is, like I said just a few seconds ago, they don't release black leaders. Anybody with that type of power, they don't want back in the community, because that challenges the status quo. So as much as people might be like, oh, this is the first win, understand this, dude. He's probably never gonna come out that cage. And it's a sad thing, because after a certain time, a lot of times lessons are learned. People tend to move more in a positive manner and really have the capability of changing certain things that are happening on the street. And I'm not saying that Larry Hoover will get out of prison and change everything that's going on in Chicago, because I think it's beyond that. I think people, there's too much bloodshed and too much animosity amongst different groups for them to ever find any sense of reconciliation. But it would be a move in a positive manner, regardless of what people have did in their past. And I know people like to use that. People have shady pasts. Everybody has a shady past, and everybody has did things. It's like right now with the whole, people saying, "Oh, it's not." You can't blame us for what our ancestors did. Well, okay, so you can't blame this dude for what he chose to do in the situation that he was put in, the life that he was made to endure, and have to figure a way to rise up out of that. People are gonna go to what comes easy to them, and that's do what they had to do to survive. Uh, so yeah, I think that if he was to get out of jail, it would be a positive thing. I think a lot of people will follow suit. Not everybody, but I think it would be more of a stronger presence on Chicago streets. But then again, you always have those saboteurs and the people that they put in position to remove you from the equation with a little bit of money. Greed is everything. So I think that's what would happen if he was to come home. It would be somebody like they always do. They infiltrate, they suppress, or they eliminate. If you cannot be brought into the fold, you are eliminated. If they can use you as a puppet, you're eliminated. We seen that with Reggie Jackson, and not Reggie Jackson, but what's his name? That one dude that opted for segregation in the county jail, but then turned around and didn't want segregation, saying that it was racist and blah 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 blah. And then you had Al Sharpton, all these rest of these puppets that worked for either the FBI or worked for doing little secret coverts in order to, further destabilize the black community. It's things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? But I say all this to say this: the only way he's He's not getting out of jail, and it's sad to say, but he's not getting out. They're not going to release anybody with that type of power back into the community unless unless they're attempting to assassinate him in the process, to only create further strife amongst the BDs and the GDs or anybody else that happens to be involved in that war. They would only use his. He wouldn't be sacrificed as a martyr. They would use him to only further, because I can guarantee they would pin it on somebody else that's of the opposition in order to further and keep that war going in Chicago. And I'm not even on here getting into Chicago politics, but it's something that was brought to my attention about the community of a sentence, and then to realize that that's just the community of a sentence. I heard somebody say something along the line before, that I was talking to, that they let Kodak Black out, they let this fool out. But Kodak Black is not necessarily a leader. He may be, his music is influential in a whole different way, and only furthers the destruction, because when people see him, they only follow suit. Some of the things that he talk about, there's nothing positive about it. It's strife and other things. Just like, they tend to let these cats out that only further to destabilize things with drug talking, sipping lean, and all these other unnecessary things that do nothing for anybody's community. They let those type out. But anybody that's like a real leader and got the the strength to really make change, they're not letting them type out of prison. If that's the case, they wouldn't have infiltrated the Black Panthers and did what they did. They're always going to seek to dismantle them. They will further their cause in that direction than they will to dismantle these militias and these racist groups that propagate hate and destruction of everything. They'll rather go at him than they whether to dismantle them. But it's always been in that way. They did it with the Hispanics as well. Like, there's a lot of people that had real voice, but you notice they're no longer speaking because they've either been subjugated or they've been eliminated. That's the whole thing, with this country. And I love the United States and a patriot for it, but that's just the way it is. Like, you either get subjugated, you fall into the fold, or you get removed. And people are probably going to come on here and they're like, well, what about this dude? And yeah, but these dudes have real power behind them, and there's not too many people going at the Muslims, especially him. And I won't even say his name because I wouldn't want to wish that on anybody, but there ain't too many people going out here. You can't even really get around him without taking the risk of getting removed. Them people around him are highly trained and willing to do whatever they got to do to protect them. That's real power. But even him, he does his thing. But yeah, yeah, that's all I'm gonna really say on that. So I'm sure this discussion will come up again, but that's just to dispel any false hope. Like, as sad as it is, he's not coming home unless a governor decides to pardon him, because that's the only way he's getting it. And then he would probably, like I said, it would be a plan. Let him out and then remove him from the planet if he can't be subjugated. That's too much power. Malcolm X, it just goes on and on. Like, pay attention to it. Anybody that has real power to do anything in the community is either found in some type of scandal, compromised in some way, or removed. But when you're dealing with people like Larry Hoover, you can't really compromise him in any way outside of like snitching allegations. But even then, there would still be people that would want to rock with him, but it would also set the wolves out amongst him. So the only thing you do with people like that is remove them from the planet, because you can't make them bow. And then you aim it at somebody else, so people think that it was these people that removed him from the planet, when it was just a plan for the government to get rid of him, period. And really have the streets of Chicago up in arms. But that's all I'm really saying on that, because this ain't really about me or anything. I'm not trying to get involved in anybody's politics, in anybody's state. It's just from my observation and just reading up on certain things about Larry Hoover and how them and the BD started, and and the GDs and the break off and all that. Like, I've been really on that like for a while since I've been on their music. But yeah, that's all I can really see. Like, if they were to ever really let him out, if he wasn't just beyond decrepit as far as old and unable to do anything, but as soon as he starts speaking, yeah, they will remove him. He would either go back in jail for the rest of his life, or they would kill him. or unalive him, my bad. Just food for thought. Your boy Zod, I'm out.